Number 6, rights of crime victims, judges. Okay, so this one creates constitutional rights for victims of crime, requires courts to facilitate victims' rights, authorizes victims to enforce their rights throughout criminal and juvenile justice processes. It also requires judges and hearing officers to independently interpret statutes and rules rather than deferring to government agency interpretation, raises mandatory retirement age of state justices and judges from 70 to 75 years, and deletes authorization to complete judicial term if 1/2 of the term has been served by retirement age. I think I'm with most of this.
Right.
Let's take it from the top. So, constitutional rights for victims of crime, requires court to facilitate victims' rights, authorizes victims to enforce their rights through criminal and juvenile justice. What does that mean?
So it's actually on the ballot in a whole bunch of states this election. It's called Marsy's Law, and it's the idea of taking a bunch of things that are already in the law, basically, and putting them into kind of a Bill of Rights for crime victims. So it's things like you can't be, stalked by the person that's accused of victimizing you, and the courts have to listen to you and accommodate you and help you, notify you when the person is being released, that you're a victim of their crime, et cetera, et cetera. So there's this bundle of things that mostly are already in the law that it would put in this sort of format. So it's not actually a big change. It's more of an emphasis, and it's more of notifying the justice system, the prosecutors and the judges and people like that they need to pay attention to the victims as much as the process of the trial and incarcerating the person.
So what is the opponent? What is the against this? What's the what are the biggest arguments?
The real arguments against it are primarily around the bundling thing, but also I think by taking what are largely administrative processes and putting them in the Constitution, it's the first one of those questions where it is, because the CRC can only put constitutional amendments on the ballot, this is something that probably makes more sense as legislation than as a constitutional amendment, but that's the mechanism we have. So, do you want to put measures about how the judge talks to victims, how the justice administration system interacts with victims in the Constitution, rather than leaving it as a matter of law and sort of management? It doesn't, again, change anything fundamental. So again, the objection is, let's not put into the Constitution stuff that doesn't need to be in the Constitution.
Yeah, which I mean, I see
sympathetic to that argument, right?
I'm a big fan of not
victims'
making
rights
things
is important,
right.
but it's not obvious that it needs to be a constitutional.
And then the rest of it is just raising the judicial retirement age.
Yeah, so the second part, raising the judicial retirement age. Okay, we all know everybody's living longer. People are mentally and physically fit, older and older. So it kind of makes sense. We have lots of judges that are being forced to retire at 70.
But does it? Because are these lifetime appointments for most of these judges? Are these terms that they're being elected for? What are
most of these are elected judges who can't run anymore after they turn 70.
So once they hit their 70, they just...
So we have a chance to, if they're
go.
too old...
You should probably go.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose all journalistic credibility. But we need new people in office. Go enjoy retirement.
And that's definitely the main argument against it, which is, we don't want the same people in there forever. We
want new blood.
We want new blood.
Because
and my wife makes a great argument. The older cohort of judges has basically no females in it. It's only when you get down to the newer judges. So this is also a way of accelerating the body of judges in the state, kind of catching up with the demographics of the state.
So yes on
there's the third part.
Oh, there is,
which is the real geek inside baseball stuff that no poor normal person should have to understand. But I'll try to make it as as real world as possible. So basically, when the legislature passes a law and the Department of Agriculture has to make it happen, right? They have to actually do the thing that the law says. Usually there's some interpretation required. You got to figure out, what does this law mean and how do we do this? And they do that. Then somebody sues and says, no, the law really means this instead. Generally, judges will say, look, unless you have really good evidence that the agency is not doing what the legislature meant, we're going to say the agency gets to figure out what it means. So we defer to the agency, and we, unless there's very solid arguments or proof otherwise. This basically measure would say, no, you can't do that. You have to assume the agencies are all completely self-interested or incompetent or whatever. You have to judge the merits of every case totally on the evidence and not defer to the agency's interpretation.
Yeah.
So again, you could make an argument. I mean,
I don't know that I hate everything about that either,
Right,
because
yeah,
I think sometimes you get caught up in some of the bureaucracy, and maybe a judge not looking at precedent or not looking at the flat regulation and saying, okay, this is a case-by-case basis. So that could be where there's conflict here, right? Maybe you believe yes on one of these, no on the other one, but you don't get that choice. You have to approve them all or reject them all. And so we talked a little bit about bundling. You can see the segment on that, but yeah, that's your choice on number 6. Yay or nay, victims' rights and judges, ages of retirement, and their decision-making capabilities.